Welcome to the Sideline Spill, the podcast where three moms with coffee cups and chaotic calendars unpack life from the sidelines.
From kids' sports to real-life mom moments, nothing's off limits. Grab your brew and join us.
Strong coffee, stronger moms, spilling it all. Welcome back to the Sideline Spill. I'm Heidi.
This is Monica.
And Sabrina.
Thank you for coming back and listening to our second part of When Your Kid is Struggling. So today we are diving back in to talk about the real, the messy, and the beautiful parts of raising our young athletes. So last time we had kind of ended the segment on big emotions. All right, Sabrina, would you mind talking to us about what supporting versus fixing might look like when you are handling a situation with your kids?
That's a fully loaded question. It's definitely situational, and I try to support as much as possible because I grew up learning how to be a fixer and wanting to fix everything around me. Just in the household that I grew up in, there was just a lot that was going on. And I was just taught early on to try to be the fixer, try to be the voice of reason or the mediator. And when I got older and started having kids, I just knew that that wasn't the home life I wanted for my children. Just wanting to give a different environment to my children and not have them have to feel like they had to grow up too soon by fixing the people around them or things like that. I also felt like I had a lot of support from my parents individually in their own ways. And as my kids grew up, I wanted them to know that I would always support them, but it's also my job to give them an environment where they feel comfortable enough to try to fix things on their own and trust that they know how to do it. And if they didn't know how to do it, that there's a safe place in mom and dad and even like grandparents, the safe people in their lives to go to them and ask for help. Early on, I realized how different my boys were. And CJ was first, Cross was second. And CJ was very emotional and Cross was not. But then it kind of flip-flopped in different ways. And we just found that CJ was a little bit easier to get to open up. And Cross was a little bit more closed off. And he would come to like anger instead of sadness and it just like was very mixed up, and the differences between the two of them made it a little bit difficult because I was more like my older son and I feel like my husband was more like the second born, but then they clashed. And so I was still kind of in the middle, like trying to support everyone in their own ways. And I just also realized early on that fixing does nothing for my kids. If I clean up the messes or I try to prevent the messes, they truly never learn. So then they're going to grow up and they're going to be these boys or my little girl, not knowing how to fix problems or like figure out solutions. Okay. That's probably the better way to put it. And I would much rather provide tools for them to teach them how to go through these hard situations, but also know that they have a support system behind them.
Right.
You know, the trusted adults, the safe adults in their lives that they can go to with any problem. But I have also told them, and they know this, that they can tell me anything. I will never love them less. I will always be there to support them, and that I'll keep it between us. But I will always keep it between us, but if I ever feel like there's a situation that needs to be handled above that, and I did touch base on this in the last segment, and that mom has to step in sometimes, and they may not like it. They may think so-and-so is going to be upset with them or whatever, but I just have let them know, like, I'm here to support you. I want you to figure out your problems, but also if mom needs to, I am going to step in. I am going to help you through it, and it's going to be okay. Yeah. So, definitely. Supporting versus fixing, and situational, different kids, different personalities. Yeah. It's a lot.
I think for me, teaching my child or my children that they have a voice and that they're not just to be seen and not heard, because that has been said a lot in our household when we were younger. That's how my husband grew up, and that drove me insane. I always gave my children a voice and allowed them to come to me, or I don't want to say talk back, because I feel like that's how James took it, right? He always took it as talking back. But for me, it was like, you know, they didn't agree with maybe why they were getting punished or whatever, like, and they were allowed to have a voice and let me know what they were feeling in that moment. And I feel like for me and my girls anyways, that has helped our relationship substantially.
That's really good though. Yeah. I feel like a few of the things that you just said, our parents were taught, and they didn't know any better than to continue that.
Right.
And so, you know, James grew up in that kind of household, like you said. My husband, I think maybe something similar along the lines of something like that. The kids just get outside, like almost like, you know, and then
let the adults be with the adults. Yeah, kids do the kids
adult
thing.
Conversations, which I
agree with that. Yeah,
I do agree with that. And then there's stuff that my dad said to us too, and I totally get where you're coming from, because there was things where I'm like, oh God, my dad said that, and my mom went along with it, and I'm like, I don't want the same. So it's our job to create something different, like you said.
Yeah, and I think by allowing them to have a voice, it gives them more of an opportunity to be able to advocate for themselves, which is so important. So many kids, even adults, don't know how to do that. And it's such an important character trait to have, especially just in our world now, to be able to say, no, I don't like that, or no, don't touch me, or no, you know what I mean? Being able to say no and have your voice heard.
So in those moments when you gave them the space or the ability to let you know how they were feeling, what did that look like? Can you give us an example?
I can't think of one right off the top of my head, like an exact example, but it was more so, you know, if maybe we told them they couldn't do something with their friends because it was not safe. They wanted to try to prove their point, right? Why it would be. And so right there is when we had to guide them in the right direction. And as they got older, we allowed, probably, I'll be honest, our girls to do things maybe a little bit earlier than some, because we wanted to give them the opportunity to make mistakes and learn from them. And hopefully, like, we were able to guide them through that rather than them grow up, make the mistakes, and maybe those mistakes, the consequences were going to be the consequences were going to be a lot worse, right? So
I also want to say we learned, and we together decided early on, that most of the time when we would tell the kids no about something, we both didn't want to do the because I said so. And I know, whatever, some people say it, we've probably said it once, but we just learned really early that when they ask why or how come, at the younger ages, they truly want to know why. And if you just sit them down and face to face and you're like, well, if you do this, and this, and we just don't think that that's safe or whatever, more times than not, they're like, okay. And then it's done and over with. It's a little bit of respect for a little child that's still learning.
I think that's something that we all probably have been guilty of at some point or another, treating them like children, in the sense that, yes, they are children, but treating them like children and not trying to communicate with them about our reasons for why maybe we're making a decision when the reality is they're little people who are learning how to be adults and they need to understand and not just be ordered around. And I think that's so important, having those conversations about why something's not safe or why this isn't a good idea or why we're, concerned about how they're behaving, because us being able to articulate to them, I think will help them someday be able to articulate to their children or to their friends or to their spouses why they have a concern or what's going on.
I agree with that. One thing that I have thought about a lot is just things that were generational, taught down the line, and I've come to terms with how would they know any different unless they were taught? And I think about that with my parents. Okay, because there's some things where I'm like, I would never do that, but in a way of like, well, that's all they knew. Like, how did they know any different? And that's how generationally, like, we figure out what works with us and what doesn't. The way we disciplined CJ early on, and then we had our second born, it has to be completely different. They're two different people.
Yeah.
And then our third, and those differences in children and changing those things.
And I think we all have to acknowledge, or at least I'll just say for us, that I acknowledge that we also are learning as parents, right? And so how we parent our firstborn is different than the ones who come after. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I think we get a little bit smarter and we get a little bit wiser as we go, right? So I think when we first had Xander and then a few years later when we had Colton, we already had enough experience as parents to be able to parent in a better way. And when I say that in a better way, what I think of are some obvious things like just being more patient and being able to communicate better with young children who have a hard time communicating with you and some of those things, but also, you have the lived experience now behind you when the next one comes along to be able to apply that to, the latest challenge with your second born or third born or however many children you have.
Yeah.
It truly kind of goes with that, I don't know, those videos or people saying, oh, you're not going to parent your first like your second, and by the time the third comes along you're like whatever.
Yeah.
It is a little bit like that because I was a very helicopter mom with my first and everything had to be a certain way and organic and da-da-da-da-da. And then it was like second came and it was like, you guys are nothing alike. I got to switch things up. Okay, how do I, even as an infant, like sleeping, one wanted to sleep with us, one did not. I had to learn two different people. Then the third comes along. So it's like you're constantly learning. And the other day I read something and it said, everyone is living for their first time ever. And that kind of spoke volumes to me because I'm like, you're a kid once, you're a teenager once, you're an adult once, you're a grandparent for the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're constantly learning and growing,
Yeah.
I feel like anything's redeemable at that point. If you're ready to not justify things and hold yourself accountable for certain things and grow more, and give yourself grace along the way.
So can I just throw in here just a little shout out? I think that is exactly right. What you said, Sabrina, about, it's all of our first time living and only time, right? But there's a song, I'm just going to throw it out there, by Alex Warren. It's called First Time on Earth. And you should listen to it. You all should listen to it. And it basically just, that's exactly what the theme of the song is. We're all just figuring it out.
Yeah.
His parents didn't do a perfect job, but, he turned out fine, right?
Right.
So
I'll have to
it's
listen to that.
it's a good reminder that,
Yeah.
like you said, we're all just figuring this out. We're all just doing our best. And
I think just as I do work on myself and all the things that I've done and the books I read and trying to just be better, I've just learned that the people around me, like my parents, my family, Chase's family, everyone, our friends, eye-opening to realize like we're all just humans and we're learning. Everyone's learning, and apologies go a long way. Showing grace goes a long way, especially even to our little kids,
Yeah,
give them grace.
for sure. James and I were so young when we had kids. So we were like 17, 18. And then that's when Mariah was born. And then 10 months later, here comes Belle. And it makes me sad sometimes because I'm like, I don't even remember some of those years because it was all just kind of a blur. But they they grew up with us. We had to grow up together, basically. And so now that they're older, now they're almost 19, almost 20, I think they appreciate our mine and their relationship anyways right now. They appreciate sorry, I'm trying to think of how I'm trying to say this. Let me start over.
Make me cry. I'm so
Oh.
like a freaking ball baby.
Oh, don't cry.
I just remember like having 2 back-to-back.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's like a blur. It really is. And
And then you
don't
feel bad a little bit. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Sorry.
It's okay.
Fine. You guys are going to make me cry.
Yeah. And then, when Roman came, it was a completely different experience. For one, we were so much older. Well, not so much. We were like 7 years older, but it felt like a lot older. So much more experience. And I do feel like he kind of got the better end of it.
Yeah.
Sabrina.
I
They're
know,
gonna make
I'm
me cry.
sorry. It's okay.
But yeah, it parenting is hard, guys. It's hard. And, going back to our question, we are all just doing the best we can. And whether that's supporting or trying to fix things, I think as long as our kids know that they have us and we love them and do support them in whatever it is, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for it.
Yeah.
Well, I think you both are pretty amazing. You guys are
Ditto.
doing a
Not
good
so
job.
bad yourself.
Yeah, with supporting, I think what I just try to center myself in is that we're trying to raise good humans, good boys and girls, right? They grow up to be good spouses, good, mothers and fathers someday, right? And it's hard when you in the back of your head, you're like, am I doing a good job?
Yeah.
I think we're all just really trying to do the best that we can. And, I just don't want to I take the responsibility very seriously, as I can tell both of you do as well, right? No one's perfect. And I hear you, Heidi, you were growing up with your daughters, but like how amazing that they still want to spend time with you and that they love you so much that they choose to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's special for sure. I love our relationship now. And it hasn't always been the best. Let me tell you, raising 2 girls while I'm raising myself is not fun.
It must have been really hard having kids that young.
It was really hard. I don't suggest it, but I also, at this point in my life, wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah.
Because I do have them,
Yeah. I still feel like a big kid sometimes.
Same.
I'm like, how is it that we're almost 20 years out of high school, right?
I am
It's
over
crazy to
20
me.
years out of high school.
So for me, growing up, my parents were wonderful, and I'm very grateful to have supportive parents. I do remember feeling like I kind of got to play mom a little bit with my brothers growing up because both my parents worked. And so like over the summer, I would be home with them. And I'm the middle child. So I have an older brother who's a year older and a younger brother who's about almost 6 years younger. And so you would not think that the older brother would pick on the younger brother, but unfortunately there was a lot of that going on. And so, I would spend a lot of time just kind of making sure that they were being kind to each other and they were, being respectful and not fighting and all of that. So I kind of felt like now as an adult, as a mother myself, I've had some great examples. My mom is amazing. She has really had a lot of really horrific life experiences, and I feel like it's amazing to me that she is the person she is with some of the things that she's been through. And she also managed to be a wonderful mother on top of that. And so, and of course, I also now have, I'm fortunate to have a wonderful mother-in-law too, who's also a great example to all of us as well.
I was going to ask you a question really quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like you had to grow up a little bit quicker than you wanted to, momming 2 boys, or do you feel like it shaped you, or how do you feel about that?
I don't want it to seem like I had to raise them necessarily. It was more just like summers when I was older. I don't know that I necessarily felt like I had to grow up faster. I also think some of it's just my personality. Like, I kind of am naturally a little bit of a mediator and, protector and all those things. But, I kind of have more of the even keel personality of the 3 of us, right? So I think some of it's just natural. Do you guys ever talk to your parents about parenting your children? Or what does that look like?
Well, I lost my dad a couple years ago, so I can't speak on today. But I will say, between my mom and dad, they were no longer together at the time of his passing. They hadn't been together for about a decade or so, maybe longer. Both great parents. My dad was an amazing dad in his own way. He had his own stuff that he had to deal with. And then my mom, incredible mom, her and I have always been super close. So I will say, though, as I got older and I had children, my dad was the standoffish one. Like, he was like, you got this. Like, he had put that confidence in me. I'm a lot like my dad was. Very independent and just know what I need to do. And so I always appreciated from him that he just knew I knew what to do as a parent. I rarely ever asked him for like advice or anything like that, because I was also trying to correct some stuff I didn't agree with the way that he was raised. And he could be very just stubborn and harsh sometimes. And it was very like, well, because I said so, things like that, like we've talked about. And so he also grew up with like, boys don't cry. And so naturally, when he was around, when they were younger, my boys, he would say some comments like that. And I would address it in the moment, be like, oh, no, we do. And like, not look at him and say, Dad, we don't do that. It was more of like, oh, no, our boys do cry and it's okay to have emotions. And I'd correct it as a teaching kind of thing. He would always respect it and stop. And then as far as my mom goes, bless her. I love her so much. I think she is still, like we were just talking about, the supporting versus fixing. She's still in the fixing. Okay. Yeah. I think we've talked about this.
I was just going to say that.
And I tell her all the time, I'm like, Mom, it's okay. I got this. Or you don't have to worry about everyone and things like that. You know, she's still in that, and that's okay. You know, that's totally okay. But I've just grown so much into like trying to just unlearn certain things and reestablish new things, kind of, so to speak. And
like
so
boundaries or what?
Boundaries, yes. Boundaries, very much so. And that has been a lot of growing pains between her and I. But I told her, I said, if I didn't want to be close with you, I wouldn't be trying to navigate boundaries, because sometimes I felt like she didn't trust me as a mom with some of the stuff. And it was not bad stuff. She wasn't being mean, but it's how I took it. And I was like, I'm almost 40. My kids are my kids. You don't have a CJ Cross and a Credence. Like, I tried to reiterate it that way. Like, my experience is different. All of ours are.
Right.
And I appreciate that she cares so much, but I am so independent that I'm like, I want to learn on my own. And so I had two vastly different experiences with both of my parents. One was very like, you got this, and the other was like, I want to help, I want to fix, let's not let them make mistakes, and just all the things.
Yeah.
And we're also parenting at a different time than our parents parented. So
Oh, yeah.
new dynamics.
Very much so.
I saw you shaking your head a lot.
Yeah,
Heidi.
it's so funny because our families are or our moms, I should say, are very similar. And maybe it's just that generation. I don't know. But my mom is the same way. Like, she has to try to fix everything and everyone. She's always like the what is it called? Like the devil's advocate or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, she always has to be that person to make sure everyone's happy. And I'm like, Mom, everyone's not always going to be happy or have everything they need in that moment. And that's okay. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. But again, also, I agree that she doesn't always feel, and I don't think she ever meant it on purpose. But I don't feel like she felt like I was capable of dealing with certain situations on my own. And again, we had to learn boundaries very quickly because there were times where I just didn't talk to her for a bit because every time I talked to her, I just felt pissed off, to be honest. Like
hurt, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Mom, if you're listening to this, I love you and we're good now.
Same, Mom.
But we did go through that, and what? I'm sure my girls and I will go through the same thing. We'll have those growing pains where they are starting to get older, and it's hard to let go. It's very hard to let go and let them make their own choices because you want them to be safe or whatever, So I'm trying to remember that in the moment when my mom is trying to give me that advice, that unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
That she really does just love and care for me, and it's not any like
Not trying to be harmful.
she's not trying to be harmful or hurt me,
And I think we probably all have experienced that from family members, right?
Yeah.
And I think it comes from a good place, right? And it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes, right? Because I can't help but think when our kids are older, like your situation, Heidi, where now they're graduating and moving out on their own and getting boyfriends, and how do you keep yourself in check, right? When you want to give them all the advice and all the warnings and prevent the mistakes. Like, you talk about being a fixer, but it's a really hard thing to not try to prevent them from making mistakes.
it's hard.
I feel like it'll be hard.
It's very hard, and you do have to give them the advice, right? Because you want to be able to say, "Oh, I told you so," right? I know that's bad, but I mean, honestly, if that's our job as parents, is to teach them, so as they grow, they could navigate life. And yes, they're gonna make mistakes, but hopefully they're ones they can come back from, right? I'm just gonna throw this out there. So my girls just moved in on their own with their boyfriends, and we tried to tell them, it's gonna be hard. It's what happens if you guys don't stay together or whatever, and of course they know it all. They know it all. And within the first couple weeks, there were struggles, and and they're just like, oh no, what did we do? How are we going to move past this? And it's one of those things, just like, well, you only have a couple options, and you can either do this or do that. I'm not going to say what those options are, but, but this is a choice that you made and a choice you're going to have to live with, or you're going to have to figure it out. It's hard though. Like I said, parenting's hard.
Not for the faint of heart.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not.
So just where you were saying giving the advice, I think something that changed in me was to handle situations differently, because I don't like when someone gives me advice I didn't ask for. And especially Mom, because she's the closest. But even some other people, it's like I want to do it and figure it out. And I learned quickly in like for my boys, especially because they're older. I went through therapy. I decided I needed to do it, mainly because I was losing my dad and I was a caretaker for him. But what I really took away from therapy was that she would always just ask me questions. She never told me what to do, how to do it, suggested anything, never. It was always a question, and I'd sit there and I'd answer it, and I worked through it in my mind, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is good. So what I kind of started doing, because I don't like getting unsolicited advice, I'm sure people around me don't, because I don't want to look like a know-it-all either, because I don't, is that now when I try to like parent or get something out of the boys or credence or whatever, I just ask questions. I just kind of prompt it and like lead into stuff so they can actually like sit there and their mind starts working. And then they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you think that's a good choice? What do you think Maestro Drake might say about that? Or what about this? And then like Cross is sitting there, oh, okay. Oh, I'm like, do you think that would make that person feel really good? And then he's sitting there thinking, and then he's like, oh, hey, Mom, I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, oh, yes. Like, doesn't always work out that way, trust me. But I have learned if you prompt the questions, and I've been trying to do that more and more instead of just being like, Cross, don't do that. Or CJ, you probably shouldn't do it that way.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it. So just, going off of that, that's something that I've really started to introduce, and it seems to be working a lot of the time, not all the time.
That's great advice.
That is great advice. I'll definitely have to try that.
Yeah.
Therapy's great.
Amen.
I feel like this is our own form of therapy, ladies.
Yes, 100%.
So Monica, when your boys are struggling, how do you not take it too personally?
That's a good question. I don't think I take it personally when they struggle, and that's my perspective on it. It sometimes makes me feel a little helpless if I can't, we talked about fixing at length and, try not to be a fixer. I think as a mom, naturally, you kind of are trying to fix and guide and mold, but sometimes you just can't fix it. And like we talked about, you just have to let them feel it and just be present. So, it doesn't mean that it doesn't make me feel sad or it doesn't make me feel, like I said, helpless and not being able to fix the problem. But I try not to internalize it. I think if I had a situation where it was extending for a long period of time, I would probably be more concerned, right? And see, try to figure out if there are other tools or resources, whether that's counseling or other things to provide some support. I don't think we've necessarily, gotten to that point yet, but if we did, we would certainly look for those. How about you, Sabrina?
I think I have to agree with you. I think early on, I would take things a little personally, only because that's all I knew, was because then I thought that I failed. Okay. And that's just learned over the years, just growing up, like we said, fixing things and different things of that aspect. So early on, I did take things a little bit personally, and I thought, okay, well, I just failed. I didn't do this the right way. I didn't parent the right way. And then I just started really looking at the big picture and realizing that we all have our own stories, including my children. And they have to go through things to grow. Or they could not, but hopefully they choose to grow and learn and be better than they were before, and just a better version of themselves. And I think when I started giving myself more grace to be open with that and realize it's not my fault, it's not their fault, it's just average struggles sometimes. Some things are a little bit deeper maybe. But I do feel like no matter what, there can be some sort of, not necessarily fixing it, but coming out on the other end maybe stronger or wiser, or, hey, now I know what to do in the future if something like this happens again. And then just knowing that my little people are going to continue to struggle, And if I just create a space for them to come to me for the comfort, then that's all I really truly care about for them.
And I think that's a great way to put it. You know, we're kind of just that space for comfort. I think if we're taking it too personally, it might be a sign that we're trying to fix too much. And, you know, I think I'll speak for myself. I've probably been there before, but I have noticed that, and it makes me very happy that my boys will come to me for that comfort. I can think of a game, I don't remember exactly when it was, probably within the last 6 months, where the boys lost and it was a hard game and Xander didn't feel like he played his best. And I just remember him walking up to me after the game. He said nothing. He just hugged me and I held him, and he just needed to be safe there for a moment. He didn't want to talk about it. He just wanted a hug. And it was like really sweet and also sad, and, you know, but also it was just really a powerful reminder that they need their moms. And they don't need a coach, and they don't need someone to fix the problems. They just need a little love.
Yeah.
I think about myself just when I'm struggling. You know, I'm talking to my husband about something. I don't want him to fix the problem. I want him just to listen and hear me out. Our kids are the same way.
Yeah.
It's taken my husband a very long time to get there because he's a fixer. And so I think that, like I said, we just have to remember that with our kids. They feel the same.
So to wrap up our episode this week, rather than having a rapid fire, because we are on kind of a heavier subject, we have some quick takeaways. So for each of you, we'll start with, what's one thing you can share with our listeners that you want your kid to remember when they're struggling?
That I love them and will always be here to listen, no matter what.
I love that.
I think I have said this a few times, but I have told them that none of it defines who they truly are, and that it's okay. It's okay to go through this. That's not who you are. Maybe something happened, but it's time to move on, and, you know, yeah.
I think for me, everything you guys said is great. And I would just add that, you know, I tell my kids often that I'm proud of them. And, you know, maybe too much. I don't know, is there such a thing as telling them that too much? But I really am proud of them. And I just try to remind them what's important is that they are kind human beings who take care of the people around them. And that's what matters to me. Not how they play soccer or what kind of grades they get, but are they a good person?
Another question, I would love to know, what is one thing both of you are working on still as a parent?
Oh gosh. You want to go, Heidi?
I think being patient in a sense of allowing, like kind of what we were talking about, allowing my kids to come to me and tell me what the problem is rather than me trying to like get it out of them too quickly.
That's hard.
It is hard. It's very hard because, again, we're fixers. It's just who we are. And that's really, really hard to not, when you see your kids struggling, to not want to just get to the root of it and figure it out. But I think we need to allow them to process and come to us when they're ready.
What about you, Monica?
Well, I think this discussion's been a good reminder that my natural tendency may be to be a fixer. And I know you touched on this, Heidi, but for me, I think that's where I need to keep reminding myself that, you know, I just provide a safe space to listen, and that, you know, we've talked about it at length. You know, I can't fix every problem. And I don't need to. They need to figure it out. And yeah.
I think for me, is just showing them grace. Just way more grace, because they're not perfect. They never will be perfect. They're going to make mistakes, and not just grace, but also I will always be their safe space, and that it's okay. You can come to me with anything.
Yeah. All right. And one last question, you guys. One piece of advice that you have for other sports moms in the thick of it.
I think I just keep thinking about that moment after that game where Xander was upset and he just came up and gave me a hug. And I think I would just remind the moms and invite the moms to just give him a hug. Try not to coach, you know, leave that to the coaches and just take care of them as a person.
Yeah.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say something similar of they were already coached during the game. It's time to just be mom, parent.
Yeah.
Just welcome them with open arms. And even if you saw a huge mistake, just leave it to someone else to do.
Yeah.
And I think just to add on to that, one last thing, just from my experience, if your kids are telling you they're tired, listen to them. Listen, let them advocate for themselves. And, you know, you don't want them to get burnt out and lose the passion that they do have. So
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. It's true.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your heart, your experiences. It got really heavy the last couple weeks. And to all the parents listening, we would love to hear from all of you. You're doing way better than you think. And this is just a moment. Just welcome those kids with open arms.
for the listeners, what's one piece of advice you would have for other sports moms in the thick of it? Until next time,
See you on the sidelines.